This episode of the Metatron's channel is brought to you by the Metatron's t-shirt, Metatron's Cube line and Roma Invicta line, both available through Teespring. Link in the description below. Hello, and welcome to my third review of Forseti Damascus Steel knives. Hello number ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking, and today we've got another review for one of Forseti Steel's Damascus Steel knives. Now, before this is the knife in question, so we're going to have, of course, some nice footage of the knife. So I'm going to show you in details how the knife looks and what I think about it. But before doing that, I'd like to spend a few seconds to talk about what Damascus Steel is when we say Damascus Steel, particularly in modern terminology, because of course this is modern Damascus Steel and it's different from the original old famous Damascus Steel, which remains now of course a mystery how it was made. So first off, let's try to understand what original Damascus Steel was and what kind of steel you have in your hands when you talk about modern day so-called Damascus knives, and whether it's a good kind of, whether it can still be considered a good steel and a good knife or not. Okay, now before actually going into the history of Damascus Steel very quickly and a little bit of technical terms as far as and technicality of this kind of steel that we have in our hands now, I'd like to remind you that for all of you who are interested in purchasing knives, whether it be Damascus or regular steel, if you're still interested in purchasing knives and weapons from Forseti, to please remember that if you enter the coupon Metatron, just following the link to their page, you can get a 25% discount for noble ones only to all the things that they sell. So I think it is worth having a look. So Damascus Steel was a kind of steel that was used to manufacture swords mainly in the Near East, specifically in the city of Damascus, where it takes its name in Syria. Now, as far as we know, Damascus Steel was a very plastic but at the same time very strong, very tough kind of steel, which became legendary for both its durability and its sharpness. Now, the secret on how to make real historical Damascus steel unfortunately has been lost. But as far as we understand, and for all the studies that have been done and have been made on Damascus blades, we know that it was a kind of steel which was the product of a smelting process, including woody biomass and leaves unknown to have been used as carburizing additives, along with certain specific types of iron in microalloying elements. Modern kind of blades that are now called, or at least have been called, Damascus Steel since 1973 are using a well-known technique called pattern welding. There are several possible kinds of steels and iron slices welded together to produce Damascus. Sometimes it's stainless steel and carbon steel together, and there are lots of different levels of quality. So let's have a look on their site and see what kind of steel we are dealing with as far as Forseti Steel Damascus Steel blades are concerned. Okay, so I'm checking this very knife here, which is called the Ironside Damascus Steel Tracker, and of course Ironside being inspired on Ironside from the famous Viking. And here we are, so clicking here and looking at the specifics. Here we've got blade material Damascus Steel 1095 15 in 20. Now I'd like to say first off, already a blade made of 1080, of course we're talking about high carbon steel. Okay, so this is high carbon steel, and already a blade made with 1080 is an excellent blade. So the only difference with 1095 is that sort of steel would make a more wear resistant blade. So in terms of quality, 1095 high carbon steel is esteemed to be, yes, cheap, but high quality steel for blades, and it's pretty good at resisting edging. And another characteristic of this kind of steel is that it holds a pretty good edge. So it's durable, as I did say in my previous review of Forseti Steel knives. So I hope that one clarified a little bit what we are talking about when we say modern Damascus Steel. But now let's have a look at this blade. So this specific knife, I have reviewed other knives and I was very, very happy with other knives. So I've got to say that this one here is not my favorite. I actually prefer other knives, like for example this one, the Gurkha, that I have reviewed in my last video, link in the description below. I tend to prefer this, but if you are into very broad and big knives, then this one would probably be the best choice for you. Now, in terms of how sharp the knife comes, now compared to other knives that I have tried before, I gotta say that this one is not as sharp, or at least maybe the level of sharpness is not really the issue, but it's probably the shape. So I think that this knife is more effective at stabbing than it is at cutting. But of course, again, a matter of personal preference. The blade is 4 millimeters thick, and of course it's a lot thicker in the back, and it's single-edged. As far as the Damascus pattern is concerned, it's what it's called raindrop pattern, which I find to be very beautiful, and I personally prefer over this kind of pattern which we have examined before. So now we're going to see a clip to compare the two. This blade has 264 layers. The material is made of micarta with brass fittings and includes a hand-stitched full-grain leather sheath with belt loop. The overall length is 9.5 inches, the handle length is 4.5 inches, and the blade length is 5 inches. So the current price for this knife is $157. I'd like to thank both Kirk and Daniel for sending me this knife and all the other knives. Of course, I'm very, very happy of receiving this gift. I think it's a very beautiful addition to my collection. And at the moment, I've got to say, though, that this is not one of my favorite. Just for personal taste, I tend to prefer the other knives that they have sent. For example, this one here.